You are now entering the box. Welcome back to Inside the Box. Excited for today's guest, Jeff Nelson, executive coach and pastor at Cherry Hills. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for joining me.
Yeah.
Real quick before we get started, I wanted to give a plug to an event coming up. Central Illinois Customer Service Association is hosting a 10-year anniversary, the WOW Effect, out at, the Crown Plaza. It's going to be awesome. We got a bunch of speakers. That's October 7th. Come out. It's a half-day event, 10-year anniversary. Come join us. Sorry, I had to give a quick plug. Trying to get the word out there. So Jeff, really excited to have you joining me. I was asked to be part of that early leaders network, and out at Shea, and that's where we first met, and I really enjoyed that. That was really awesome.
That makes me glad.
Yeah, no, it was great. Getting to meet some more people, getting recommended the book that we read, Leveling Up.
Leveling Up,
yeah. Great book. And, I was kind of questioning some stuff in my head that I was doing at the time. And it's just interesting how things happen. And, the kind of like a lot of stuff in that book either affirmed some of the things I was questioning or helped me think through some of the things I was questioning. So that was really awesome.
I'm glad.
Yeah. How many of those have you guys done?
Well, we actually go back further to 2015 is when Mike O'Shea started the Emerging Leaders.
Okay.
And we had probably 8 or 9 cohorts, and then they wanted to revamp. Went from 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership with John Maxwell as the curriculum, and they felt like 2 semesters might be a little bit too long for some people to sustain, so we revamped it using the Leveling Up book by Ryan Leake, and now it's 11 weeks, and it's we were able to start in September and finish before Thanksgiving. That way people have an off-ramp a little bit earlier and they can sustain that kind of commitment.
Yeah. Getting up at about 6:30 or whatever it was. For me, I got to get from Sherman to O'Shea, so it's even a little more of a journey. The thing the other day was cool too, the Elevate Springfield event. I was a little frustrated with myself. I was leaving home and I wasn't going to get to see my kids because they weren't up yet. And I stopped and went back and wrote my son a note because he was student of the week. And I had fixed this toy. He had to bring in like one of his favorite toys. So I wrote him a note and stuck it to it. And then I left, and just those couple minutes, I got stopped by a train, and it was a freight train. It was took forever. And then, I hit all these lights, and I'm like, man, it's crazy just how those couple minutes can throw off everything. But my wife said he was really excited to get the note and everything. So I was happy about that.
It'd be a good dad.
Yeah.
No, Mike, I'm just so impressed with how Mike O'Shea has looked at his resources and his success and tried to, literally lift other people up and build into the next generation. And so having a friendship with him and partnering together all these years has been a real joy.
Yeah. And you mentioned at the last event that you guys have known each other for a long time.
Yeah. I moved back here in 1995.
Where were you at?
I was in Iowa for 6.5 years, and then I had been here in the 80s, from 84 to 88 before that. So when I came back, Mike was now part of our church, and he and I started having lunch together. So in 1998 or early 99, I invited him to study the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership with me and about 10 other people. It's back in the days of VCRs. You may remember VHS tapes. Yep. And so we'd put in a VHS tape and watch John Maxwell talk about a chapter we were studying, and then we'd discuss it. And 15 years later, we were at Sangamo Club one day having lunch, and Mike says, we should do that again. And I said, I've been thinking the same thing. So we took a number of people. He said, I have the resources now, so I'll pay for the breakfast, I'll pay for the book, I'll provide the space if you'll facilitate. So we invited 10 other people and went through it again with 10 different people. And after that, he had the idea, look, I know a lot of business owners and CEOs in town. I grew up here. I'm going to ask them to tell me 1 or 2 up-and-comers in their organization or company. And he invited them to the first cohort, of which I helped facilitate and was part of that. went all the way through with that cohort. It's the one cohort that has continued to meet every month.
Love that.
And then now Matt O'Shea's cohort that was part of yours, is also trying to meet with some of the people. And again, for the most part, it's just been a rocket ride to just see what Mike O'Shea has done as far as his vision for just enriching other people's lives. We do other book studies, and then you were part of Elevate Springfield together the other day, where we invited 25 younger leaders to come in, and we had a panel, and I loved it.
Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate being included in that. It's amazing how much you get just from discussing these different topics. You know what I mean? Hearing other people's point of view, stuff they're dealing with. Just, I started this business and I didn't really know what I was doing. I just did it, and kind of learned along the way. And, I've, especially this last year, I've learned a lot of things. I guess you could call them mistakes, but things that I should have done from the beginning that would have made it a lot easier now, that would have potentially even allowed us to grow a lot faster and, be a lot further along than we already are. We're going on 10 years next year.
Well, I have tremendous respect for business owners, and especially smaller business owners, and founders like yourself. So to pioneer something like you have is pretty amazing. I think the overwhelming comment we hear in all these groups is, I thought I was the only one.
Yeah.
And it's just not true. And so when we get people at tables together, just being honest and being authentic, I think most people are not only surprised they're not alone, but also they really do learn as they discuss what they're finding out as they move along. And it's just been great to cross-pollinate with people that way.
Yeah. And I love, that's one of the reasons I do this podcast is I love just bringing on people that are interesting or business owners or anything, and just having an uninterrupted conversation with them and just getting to pick their brain, learn their story, and just learn from them. I think everybody's got something to teach you.
Yeah, podcasting is just, it was not in existence when I started as a leader. And so I have really found it to be rich. I've gained a lot from a lot of podcasts. So.
Yeah, no, it's when I first moved to Sherman, I was a little bit worried about it's not a long drive, but the 15, 20-minute drive, I was like, this is going to be too much for me. Cause commutes, I've always kind of dreaded a commute, but before I lived 5 minutes away. So you almost even have any time to think before you're at work and you got to work. So I've really enjoyed it because on the way to work, I usually listen to a book or something informational that kind of gets my mind going. And by the time I get here, usually I'm ready to go. And then on the way home, it's like a little bit of the perfect amount of time to kind of relax a little bit, maybe listen to a more, I guess you could say, entertaining podcast or comedy podcast or something. So I've really enjoyed having that just kind of little bit of commute. If it was too much longer, I don't think I would. Yeah. It'd take too much time out of my day.
Well, nowadays too, where you can set the speed, I oftentimes do 1.5, and so I can listen to a 20-minute podcast between my drive home and or going somewhere.
Yeah.
So.
No, I left that Elevate Springfield event the other day, and I was just thinking too. I was like, man, it'd be really, hearing how you guys met all the time. I was like, I feel like I want to try to get some business owners together just to meet, a couple times a month and just talk,
There's just something about it. We honestly believe that it's not even the things we say that are going to be most beneficial. We believe that it's getting a chance for other people to hear each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And no, I think it would just be very helpful, to be able to just talk to other business owners about challenges they're dealing with or current issues or whatever it may be, problems they've had that maybe they've figured out that you don't know. So yeah, I've kind of been pondering that in my head, trying to put together some people to do that with, because I think that would be great.
Even if it's just a one-off.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we feel like we got to sign up for a life sentence or something that's undefined. And if you say, hey, what if we just met once and see where that goes?
That's kind of, because it's a lot, to ask someone to commit to something, especially if it's weekly or something, that's a lot. So yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe just try it and see what happens and if we want to keep doing it or not. But yeah, again, just enjoy talking to people, learning.
Well, you know that we just started the newest round of emerging leaders this morning at O'Shea, and I was just saying to them, look, either if it's one person, if it's three people, and you can always decide what you want to be the content, but you can actually do this stuff. You don't have to wait till later in your life. It's not fancy. I mean, we met in a guy's house on Huntley Road there, and in the basement, and he was more than willing to host us, and everybody brought their coffee, and we just met, and most of the guys wanted to continue. I mean, that's what's amazing about it. But it didn't cost any money. We just took advantage of the collected, shared knowledge.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. You know, especially from people outside of your particular field. If you can learn that way, it's really interesting. And then, of course, when you have people like from the state that are bureaucratic and they don't have the same options as someone in the private sector, it really does show you like what pure leadership can look like sometimes, or what you can do within the bounds of your work environment.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think try to figure that out here at some point. get it organized.
Well, you have young children too, and I do think I did that when I had young children, so I had to do it really early in the morning. I'm an early riser, so it wasn't any problem, and I fortunately invited a whole bunch of other early risers. Mike O'Shea is up at like 3:30 in the morning, and he goes running and all that stuff. So, I mean, I was a late person compared to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you always been an early riser?
Yeah, actually, I've been a late night and early riser. I don't usually get more than 5 or 6 hours of sleep a
Really?
night. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I like by the end of the day, my creative juices are just like getting started. So I've always been kind of a night owl.
Yes.
But I've tried to change that lately, with having kids, and I've been trying to work out more regularly, and it's like the best time to do it's just in the morning to start the day. I think I delivered newspapers for 10 years of my life, and I think that kind of killed early mornings for me.
I did that too.
Yeah, so I have switched, and I do usually get up at like 5:30 now, and I enjoy it. I mean, the other day when we had that event, I was up at, I think I got up at like 4:30 because I wanted to get my workout in before leaving and get some breakfast and everything. So it's crazy. You have like a whole day, and it's not even, you know what I mean, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock.
I live less than a mile from the Racket and Fitness Center, and so I used to play tennis for about 24 years at 6 in the morning before our kids got up, so I could get home and help my wife get the kids to school. And yeah, if you can figure out that rhythm, it makes a big difference how your day starts and how much energy you have stepping into the day.
Yeah. So how'd you become a pastor?
That's really a mystery to me sometimes. My dad was a pastor.
Okay.
And so I got a chance to see the good and the bad of that, a front row seat sometimes to how he did it. And
grew up though, going to church.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the other thing too. I've met other pastors' kids, and my parents were authentic. You know, it wasn't like one thing where they were on at church and then a completely different person at home. So because they were authentic, it kept me in being open to that. But I never thought I would be a pastor. I had a lot of old ladies and older people come up and tell me when I was a kid, "You're going to be a pastor one day." And I thought, well, they're just being nice, or they just want more pastors. But by the time I was in my 20s, I even finished in college without knowing I was going to be a pastor. I was offered a job up in Wheaton, Illinois, to be a kind of a investment broker kind of thing, and a lot of promised possibilities. And after the 3 interviews, and they offered me a job with a guaranteed salary the first year, I just couldn't. I thought I would love to do that, but my dad said, I feel like you were made for something else, and I can't lie to you. I'm never going to tell you that again. I don't want you to feel pressured, but I don't think you'd be happy no matter how much money you make. And I don't think there's anything wrong with making a lot of money. He just told me that. And so I became a youth pastor here, and after 6 months, I said to my wife, I think I was built for this. And it's been a huge learning curve. So for 4 years as a youth pastor, then I went out to Iowa and was a senior pastor on my own of a church of about 250, and then came back here 30 years ago and worked with my dad for 3.5 years and succeeded him. So that was
awesome.
Some of the story. Yep.
Very nice. Yeah, my grandparents went to church, every Sunday. when we would visit them in Maine. We were going to church with them, and my family never really went to church except like on Christmas Eve. For some reason, lately I've had a desire to potentially try going to church. I don't know why. I think there's something today that, like, with even past, like, if you believe in God or believe in any of that stuff, like there's just like a core moral values that I think is taught. You know what I mean? That's very good, that I think that lacks a little bit in today's world.
We're seeing a lot of more people after COVID come visit our church and be more genuinely interested. And my daughter, when she was in college, said, Dad, what I love about our church is that, and I've visited a number of ones over here at college, but what I love coming home is it doesn't mean that everybody's exactly like this, but the majority of people at our church lean in. They want to be there. And I think that's what I really celebrate, is whenever I see more of a want to spirit, a get to spirit instead of a have to.
Yeah.
Because that's always a richer environment to be part of. And so that's always been one of my dreams, is that we would have a majority of people that just were there because they wanted to. No one was holding a gun to their head or forcing them to. And I do think sometimes being a parent sometimes causes people to think about that. Like, what am I investing in my family? For other people, it's just they can't even explain it. They just feel this pull or this draw.
Yeah.
And so it's one of the more enjoyable things for me, is to see people's process spiritually.
That's awesome.
Really try and honor that, because I don't want people just nodding and doing all the right things just because it's the hoops to jump through. I think if it really comes from the heart, it'll mean a lot more to people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember, like, essentially being forced to, when I was visiting my grandparents, and it was just like, all right, I guess I'll go.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, I think that, anytime you kind of want to, I think it was good that my parents didn't like force me to by any means, but I don't know. Yeah, I think you're right though. Something with kids too, and just wanting to make sure, and as a parent, obviously you can instill some of those moral values and stuff too. But we actually sent our kids to, it was like a free camp over at Calvary.
Yeah.
And they did some
a summer camp, like vacation Bible school.
Yeah,
like that.
So they did some Bible school stuff. So, my kids would come home and have all these questions, and I'm like, I don't got the answers for you on some of that.
Yeah.
I was like, but just tried to tell them what I could, and it was interesting.
Well, again, I just appreciate the fact you're trying to figure out your search, and we're just trying to make sure that we are focusing on what the Bible says. And the majority of comments we get are, I've learned more in the last year than I learned the last 30 years of where I went to church or what I knew before. And they just appreciate that, because they see how it connects to their life. And if it's not practical, then we're missing something.
Yeah.
So I want to put shoe leather to it.
So how, what led you then to becoming an executive coach?
Yeah, well, it's very much related to Mike and I's friendship. So when I was doing these things with Mike for those leadership things, he said, there's a lot of people in this community that want to learn more about leadership, not just the younger leaders. So why don't we do some book studies? Why don't we, in fact, like one time we did a 12-week series on the life of David in the Bible and the leadership lessons we draw out from his life as a warrior and a king. And at that time, we were just doing it with a bunch of men. And then we said, my goodness, there's a number of great women leaders or people that are aspiring to that. So let's start doing mixed groups like that. So anyway, by meeting hundreds of leaders in our community, doing that with Mike, then I realized that some of them were asking for coffee or lunch later. And as we talked, a lot of them wanted to process things, and they told me sometimes I was helpful to them. So I was figuring out, what do I need to do when I step aside from my role as senior pastor? And it really seemed to be the right thing for me to get certified in and invest in.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. So how would you say faith influences the way that you kind of coach, executives and leaders?
That's a great question. I mean, certainly I feel like most of the wisdom I've learned has come from some of the wisdom in the Bible and from people that I've known. I've had the privilege of coaching people that are Jewish, that are Hindu, that are not of faith at all. And I remember one guy said to me, he says, I just need to know, are you going to force your faith on me since you've been a pastor? I said, man, I'm so glad you asked me that. I will not superimpose that. I mean, hopefully it influences me for good in a way that might benefit you, but I'm never going to regularly pound on you or ask you, if you have the same faith as I do, because I think we can learn a lot from each other.
Yeah. Which kind of brings me to what has coaching leaders and executives, what has that taught you about yourself even?
Well, I need to, I'm a Nelson, so I tend to talk too much. And so I think coaching just urges you to become a better listener. And so one of the things when I was making this transition where I was stepping aside to more behind the scenes as a pastor at Cherry Hills, I went out and met with a life planning coach in Las Vegas, my wife and I. And one of my assignments before I went there was, what are some words that people use about you? So I was meeting with a guy that didn't even go to our church, but he was asking for some wisdom about a decision he was making. And after it was over, he had actually gotten so emotional during it that he had started crying. And this guy was a weightlifter and everything. So I was somewhat touched that we were able to talk about something that meant that much to him. So I said, hey, could you do me a favor? Could you tell me what word would you use? You've known me for several years. What word would you use for me? And he said, I want to say insightful, but he says, I think it's deeper than that. I think it's incisive. That you ask questions that go into a person's heart and help them see their heart. And when he said that, I had never thought of myself. And he said, it's incisive means more surgical. It goes beyond some of the early layers.
Kind of like incision, is that where it comes from?
Yeah, that's actually And so I would say that some of the people have helped me understand what it's like to interact with me. And of course, I want to get better at asking questions that are helpful for discovery. Instead of being directive and telling people, giving them counsel all the time.
Yeah.
It means way more when you discover it for yourself. So
Right.
to me, coaching is drawing that out of a person, believing they already have some of the wisdom they need and they're just having a hard time acting on it or knowing it. And if you ask good questions, it really can draw people out. And it always means more when they discover it for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, no, kind of having that epiphany or that coming, just it hitting you, you know what I mean? And you just kind of prompting it. Yeah, I could definitely see that. That's, I feel like that's kind of happened. I mean, honestly, in the emerging leader stuff, some of the stuff we talked about are some of the questions you would ask, I feel like that definitely hit home for sure. We talk about, I kind of mentioned one of the reasons I've been kind of considering church and everything is that, there's a level of values that it teaches that's talked about that I think is very important. What role would you say values play in long-term business success?
Well, if you're talking about what are we going to put on our wall so we can say we have values, I would say very little.
Yeah.
But usually values come from the leader themselves. And if people respect that person, then they're interested in what that person values. And then it can bleed into the organization. I think the organizations that say these are our values, but they don't see it in their leaders, it has very little effect. It's almost laughable. But when you're around somebody, one of the words I've really come to love is the word impart. So you can tell people information, but if you impart something to them, like you impart a spirit or a value to them by the way you live it, and I call it rub off. To me, how do I rub off on somebody? Because we all rub off on people some way. It's either negative or positive, And so I think values are usually rubbed off on people more than just putting them on a wall or a plaque. And I think that's one of the reasons, for instance, a lot of people respect Mike O'Shea, because the way that he's conducted himself in his business, when he talks about that with his team, they already know that that's important to him. He's not perfect, but I'm just saying they feel some of his values, and he felt some of the values from his dad and his grandfather.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that continues to, it's like your true north. it keeps coming you back, because we all drift. We all sometimes swing out of balance. So what brings us back? I think values do.
Yeah.
And I do believe that there are certain values that are found not only in the Bible, but also through a relationship with God. That when I drift, I'm super thankful that He values, for instance, human life. Especially in this world that is devaluing human life in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That's great for me to have a true north to come back to that. Like, I try and remind myself that I've never locked eyes with someone that doesn't matter to God. I mean, it doesn't matter if they're a different religion, different background from me, completely different from me, even if they irritate me. I try and remind myself, okay, there's probably some things I don't know, but I believe underneath all of that, even if it's hard for me to notice or understand, I believe they're a person that was created in the image of God, and therefore they have inherent worth. Well, that changes then, like when I treat them rudely, which I have done sometimes, even with merchants here in town and impatience. It caused me to go back to them and say, I did not treat you the way you should have been treated.
Yeah.
So values, I think, are super important.
Definitely. It's interesting you talked about kind of the like true north type of thing is we went through this, we've been going through this reorganization process and working with a business that's kind of helped facilitate it. And one of the things they had us do is put together a clarity compass. And, you have your values of the business and I'm trying to think, I can't think of the other parts offhand, but essentially like in your growth is up here, and it's like if any decision you make, use your clarity compass. One might swing this way or one might swing this way, but in general, are they both guiding you, here?
Yes.
So that was pretty interesting, and it's been a cool process.
If you've read Jim Collins' books at all, business wise, he wrote Built to Last and Good to Great, and now they're a little bit more dated.
Yeah.
But they
Good
were
to Great I read a while ago.
Yeah, they're tremendous books. They may be a little more dated now, but his research showed, like he used the example of Merck, which produced, pharmaceuticals. They basically gave away an eye medicine that was very expensive to people in a certain country that were more prone to get it because they believed that was one of their values. Even though they were going to lose money in that particular pharmacy, they decided it fit their value. So I like an example like that because I think we do make decisions that may sometimes out front seem to hurt us by comparison to the profit line.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing when you were talking about just maybe more of an interest in God or church. I think a lot of people are finding that this materialistic mindset is coming up empty for a lot of them. I mean, I think it's a fun game to play at times, don't get me wrong. I like toys as much as anybody. But I think ultimately we realize, I'm trying to think who said it, that it says inside each one of us is a God-shaped vacuum that only God can fill. I think a lot of people are becoming aware that something's missing. I don't know exactly how to put it. I like a lot of my life, but there's still something missing. And
it feels like that sometimes.
Yes, I think so. I think a lot of people connect with that picture.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things I hope to accomplish with this kind of reorganization too is to just give me more of my time back so I can look at doing other things. Obviously becoming more profitable, offering more opportunities for my team, stuff like that. But with that, like, if we are more profitable, we do have some extra money, like what can I do for that? Like I would love to be able to do more in the community and, sponsor more things and just help, out whoever I can more. And, we do things here and there. But, just like, you talk about Mike, like it's awesome that he's, willing to spend the money and resources on things like that. So it'd be really cool to be able to do more of that in the future.
And, you're younger than Mike, Mike is, and, they had the tornado, and he had just moved to where he is now on Constitution Drive. But if he had tried to do that at 10.5 Street when he was there, I don't think we could have even fit in some of the rooms there. And nor was O'Shea as profitable. Once they started doing stuff with the Memorial and St. John's and then went more regional, then some of those resources became, more available. He also created, kind of a family trust and things like that, a foundation, so that he can do some of those things. So if you have at least that value and that dream, then as you have more resources, then of course you can live it. But if you don't have that value, it's not going to happen.
Right.
So that's another example of how values play a part.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about. It's funny, we were kind of talking about that true north. One of my questions I had noted down is how can a company discover its true north when it comes to culture?
Well, I will say, first of all, in all the different teams and individuals I meet with, I believe that culture is enormously important. Matthew Kelly says that culture eats strategy for breakfast, which I think is an interesting statement. In his book, The Culture Solution, I agree with him. I go into different situations, and if I, as a leader, am not creating a healthy culture and we're trying to accomplish a lot, we are absolutely hampered. So the true north, how do they discover that? First of all, I think you pay attention to the decisions you're already making and saying, why are we making those decisions? And our staff, what we do regularly, when we're making a decision, we say, what's the value behind that decision? And that question has been such a good question, because if it doesn't match the value, why are we doing that? Mm-hmm. Is it going to move that value further down the field for us? So I think part of it is watching what you've already been doing. And there's no question that the speed of the leader is the speed of the team. So if the leader, I don't care what they say out of their mouth, what I say out of my mouth, if I'm contradicting that, then I'm not going to find the true north. I will continue to find that it's ultimately what I do with my time and what I emphasize.
Yeah. It's amazing how like one person can throw off culture so dramatically too.
And that's why selection and hiring are so important.
Yeah, we've experienced that numerous times. And, early on I didn't think too much about it. You know what I mean? But, as time goes on and you really start to realize like, wow, this person's really throwing things off. And, I liked the other day at the Elevate Springfield thing when, what did you say? It was something about like, don't wait, you know what I mean? Or don't, on decisions. I have it written in my notes, but it was basically like
sooner rather than
later. Yeah. And there's so many things that, there's been numerous times that I'm like, I know I need to do something or take care of something or unfortunately let somebody go, but I'm like waiting to do it to try to plan accordingly or this or that. And there's probably been, I can't say every time, but I'm sure there's in some of those situations it's harmed the business overall. But yeah, sometimes it's hard, man.
Well, I think I mentioned it the other day at that event that I just realized that I was still too much of a people pleaser, or I was afraid to have my image of what other people thought of me. But while I was worried about that, all the rest of my colleagues were wondering if there was a leader in the house. They wanted to know if I would step up. Not because they wanted to hurt anybody, but they just wanted to get addressed. And I was still trying to gather enough information to make sure I wasn't going to make the perfect decision or the wrong decision. So it's more art than science sometimes, but it takes courage.
Yeah.
And I think it took me too many years to get enough courage that I think I hurt not only the people that needed me to tell them the truth, but also the people around them.
Yeah.
And so I've learned probably more from my mistakes than anything else.
Yeah.
And I've made a number of them. And that's why Mike and I started that thing again. He and I looked at each other and said, back in 99, we were commiserating all the time at lunch because we were making so many mistakes. and my biggest mistakes have been in not being clear on what we were looking for in the hiring or selection process. So not only did that hurt the person we brought on, because here they are relocating or bringing their family. That still makes me sad the way I set some people up to fail because it wasn't as clear. And getting clear on now what we look for in selection was probably one of the best things we did. Because if you make the right selections out front, you save yourself not only a ton of headache, but you actually make your culture great.
Right.
Like the water level will always go up if you find the right person.
Yeah.
Even if that's not their particular competencies. If they're a great person, a lot of times they can figure some of that out. Mm-hmm. And that's probably one of my biggest learnings. I did not pay enough attention to chemistry and emotional intelligence. I overemphasized, do they have the competency? but I didn't pay attention to how their personality or their character was going to rub off on the rest of the people.
Yeah.
And man, that was a painful mistake. And in church world, we're all supposed to love God and be nice and all that kind of stuff. So when you got to be honest and say, this is not a good fit, wow. Because the word fit is so elusive, it feels kind of slippery to people.
Yeah.
But I think everybody knows when there's a good fit and when there's not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard, man, especially if you got to let somebody go. I know, like, I had to let one person go one time, and I knew I had to do it for, like, a while, and I just had a knot in my stomach about it. They had a family and all this stuff, and I was like, oh, my God, I don't want, you know what I mean? I just didn't want to do it, but, it's hurting everybody else and the culture and people, it always is probably one of the worst parts about being
it's one of the hardest
leader.
Parts of leadership. I tried to tell our staff, though, I think if you adjust people's expectations, we used to say, look, we are not here automatically, that the only way we would leave our team is if I have a moral failure or some emotional meltdown. We're going to think in chapters. Some of us are going to be good for this team no matter how much the organization's needs change for a number of chapters. Some of us will be only a couple chapters, but we're going to evaluate that regularly and make sure that we can adapt as a team. So as long as you don't hold this like, you can't possibly ever let me go, if as long as I'm being upstanding and all that, it's more than just about competency.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough thing for sure. I like how kind of you're talking about the qualities in the different people, and it's not always like the skill, but are they going to fit the culture, and I think analyzing those qualities can be hard sometimes. Do you, how would you say, like, if you're hiring or trying to figure out if someone's going to work, what are some of the ways to really get a good idea of, pulling some of those qualities out or getting an understanding for does that make, I feel like I didn't ask that very well.
No, you're trying to get to those things and discover. There's a couple ideas. I've heard one guy say that he tries to do more than just the standard interview process. He tries to put someone in a position where they'll be off balance to see how they respond. When we hired a guy that's been with us now 23 years, he had to fly from Princeton, New Jersey, and so his flight got delayed in Philadelphia. He was coming out for a weekend while he was still in school, and watching how he responded to that delay. And then also the hotel we had reserved had overbooked, and so I had to bring him back to our house and sleep in our daughter's shorter bed. This guy's 6'5", and the way he reacted to that. So sometimes it's seeing people off balance, and if you can take them outside in normal settings, some people take them to dinner, some people take them for a car ride. There's lots of different things, but I think some of it's that. And then also for me, I have what I call the 5 C's, the D, and the E. And it took me a while to design these, and these aren't all original to me, but we look for character, competency, chemistry, capacity. In other words, how many chapters do they have in them they can adapt? And then number 5 is, do they have a sense of calling, or is it just going to be a job for them? So the 5 C's. And then the D is, do they have drive? Like, do they have self-initiative? If they don't have drive, I can't be their drive. If I have to constantly be motivating them, that's going to be a problem. And then E stands for EQ, or emotional intelligence. And again, I underestimated the C of chemistry and the E of EQ of emotional intelligence. Let me give you an example. If a person is blind, has blind spots like Steve Carell on The Office, and you go to deal with them and point something out, even if you do it humbly and graciously and they go, oh, I don't see that at all, then you've got a bigger problem. Because that's not going to not get corrected because they don't think it's a problem. And if everybody around them goes, it's a problem, and they don't realize it's a problem, it's just going to be a headache. And again, there's we all have some lack of emotional intelligence, right? I mean, I would never want to say, just follow me. I have no, lack of emotional intelligence. But what does a person do if they don't have much emotional intelligence? They ask people to give them honest feedback, and they accept it. They become teachable. So let me give you one more example. Patrick Lencioni, who is an incredible, works with Fortune 500 companies, has written a great book called The Ideal Team Player. He makes it even more simple. Humble, hungry, smart. They look for people. And he has interview questions in the back of that book that you can ask people to discover humble, hungry, smart. And some of the people I work with in the healthcare field.
What was the book's name?
The Ideal Team Player. And it's Patrick Lencioni, a good Italian name. But some of the people I work with and coach, they've never heard of him. So I just share that. I did that with one of the companies here in town this summer. And then, again, one of the other healthcare groups, a number of those people have never heard of Patrick Lencioni. So it's great because humble, hungry, smart is not only portable because it's memorable, but when you understand why each one of those matters, like if you only have 2 of those, how does that play out?
Yeah.
And by smart, he doesn't mean IQ. He means awareness. He means, emotional intelligence. And so if a person only has 1 of those 3, if they're humble but they're not hungry, they don't have drive,
right,
you're going to constantly be trying to have to get them off their chair and into the action. And if they don't have emotional intelligence, they're going to really frustrate most of the people around them.
Yeah.
Because if you have emotional intelligence, you're tuned in to other people and you can play off and collaborate with them.
Yeah.
So I really like that a lot.
Yeah.
And again, that's some of the training I've tried to do with teams is help them, because there's actually tools where you can evaluate how much you have of each of those 3.
Yeah.
Because we all have to grow
check that book
in all
out.
3 of those. Yeah.
The one of the questions I was going to ask, I was trying to think, like even submitting questions. I ended up not submitting any questions for the event. I still definitely wanted to go though to see what was asked. But at the end when you kind of opened it up for Q&A, I was just trying to think of some things and had a couple different ideas. A lot of them were like very, I guess, personal, so I didn't really want to throw them out there. But one of them I was thinking about. By the time it kind of came to me, like it was, we had to get out of there or whatever. But one of the issues that I see a lot, especially with younger people, is they always want the reward before putting in the work. And I was kind of interested of how, everybody up there would have addressed that, or what they thought about that, or how they handle that, when it comes to younger people.
Well, I think we always have to be careful. I think one of the things that's happened too often is we broad brush a generation. So you'll hear some people say, this generation doesn't know how to work as much, or they don't care. I think what I've been learning through just working with different generations is I think a lot of the younger generations are saying, you older generations, you were workaholics. I don't want to be a workaholic.
Yeah.
I don't want to shaft my family like that. So if I can figure out some way to adjust back from that and still have a good life, what's the pop phrase is work-life balance. Which, by the way, I think is impossible, but it's at least a phrase to aim for, right? So I look for people with drive, but I also admire how some of the people younger than me probably have better boundaries than I've had. So I think we can learn from each other. But I do think that's always the temptation. I think all of us want to get it faster.
Yeah.
If we can. I remember a guy years ago that said, people in your generation, they were referring to me and my wife, want something in 3 years that your parents got in 30.
Right.
And then later they said people now want stuff even before 3 years, right? And again, with the materialism, with credit cards, with loans and all that kind of stuff, nowadays we can actually have that, but the problem is we pay the piper.
Yeah.
And then there's tension, and so we don't really enjoy it as much because while we have it and the fun of that out front, it also, by the way, causes us to avoid building character or backbone. And if we don't have that, it's not going to help us later on when we take on bigger challenges.
Yeah.
So I think it just requires a lot of that humility we were talking about earlier. If I can be humble and say, what are my expectations? Are they realistic? Am I overrating myself? Then if you can do that, I think sometimes it helps. But I don't think there's any way to take away our ambition completely. And I wouldn't want to be with someone that doesn't have some ambition.
For sure.
It's just, what does healthy ambition look like?
Yeah.
And what do healthy expectations look like?
And I think one thing that I probably need to be better at is outlining like really outlining the path for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, you want to be here.
Yes.
Well, here's exactly what I need you to do to get there.
Yes.
And that's one area, setting goals and working with the team to achieve those goals. Something I haven't done enough of. And part of this process we've been going to kind of helps walk you through that and how to do that, and gives you a framework for working on it and doing it, which has been very helpful. And so I'm excited to kind of implement that better and, do it. And not only that, but communicating them, what was her name? Sarah, maybe?
Sarah Phelan?
I don't remember if it was Sarah or the other lady that was the head of the school, District 186.
Oh, yeah, Jennifer Gill.
I don't remember if it was one of them, but they said, I think it was Sarah when she was talking about, like, she wants to do something and has all this, but she doesn't, like, communicate why she wants to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was one of the things I wrote down. And then I think you even referenced the book Start With Why, which I read a while back,
Simon
which was
Sinek.
a great book.
And even if you can't read the whole book, there's so many YouTube videos on that out there that are even 3 minutes long. It still helps you take away.
Yeah, just the one, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Yes.
Like, that's my takeaway from that book that I've kind of just always kept with me for a while. I think it's even written on the bathroom wall in there. We write little things on the wall.
Which, by the way, that was probably the number one question the people that came to that event asked in advance is, how do you motivate? So motivation's huge, and the why is the motivator.
Yeah.
It's the thing that explains why you're doing what you're doing. So I think Simon Sinek was a genius for uncovering that word and just making it that simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've even, at one point I did like, I sent out like a survey to everybody and had them like, I think one of the questions was like, what motivates you or what? Because I was just trying to get an idea, you know what I mean? Do you want more time off? Do you want, does money motivate you or whatever it may be? It's just kind of an interesting thing to try to figure out. And
because that's changed.
Yeah, and I think
it's not just money anymore. And I think that was always the solid answer in most people's minds.
Right.
A raise, a bonus, a vacation.
It was interesting, though. A lot of people didn't know what to put.
Huh.
You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. It's just, and that was a while ago. I probably should do it again here at some point.
Well, even asking the question, Andrew, I just want to applaud you because, again, I shared this morning with the group, but during COVID, over 50% of people left their jobs.
Really? Yeah.
Which, talk about a turnover in our workforce.
Yeah.
And that created a lot of havoc. Now, some of that, of course, was retirement early or retirement age.
Right.
But some of it, I think a good percentage of that, the people, when they were asked why they left their job, they said it had to do with their manager, their boss. Their boss or manager had not asked them in the last 3 to 6 months how they were doing. That's a glaring mistake.
Yeah.
So the fact is, we need to ask our people, what are you thinking? What do you want? What do you hope for? I tell most of our younger leaders, I had to learn this the hard way, and it took me probably 20 years of not knowing this to learn it. But if you can surface people's expectations early, then you can determine whether it's a reasonable expectation that you can meet or not.
Mm-hmm.
But if you never say, what are you hoping will come out of this conversation when we meet today? What are you hoping will happen when you work for our company? What do you think? And then, of course, as a leader, it's also the reverse is true. If I don't say, here's what I'm hoping for, here's what I expect. So that guy I was telling you about that we put off balance by him flying, from Princeton, New Jersey, first time I ever spent time with him in an interview, we had 45 minutes where I asked him a lot of questions, and then I said, do you have any questions? And I'll never forget the first thing he said. If I come to work with you after the first year, how would I know I was successful?
I like that.
That was a great question. And I remember thinking, I like this guy just because he asks good questions, which tells me he's emotionally intelligent enough to perceive, can you help me know what the target is I'm going to be aiming for? Because if it's a target I can't see, the chances of me hitting it just went way down.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, what a great question to ask.
Another question.
Nobody's ever asked me that when I asked, do you have any questions for
me?
And
I've never been asked that since. But I've never forgotten the question. And I would say, too, the other question that we try and ask our team, again, I mentioned that this morning in the group, is what's one thing I can do that would help you flourish? Now, I like it. It's only one thing. It's not three. But And sometimes we may have to say, I'm not sure I can come through for you on that, but it helps me to know what you are looking to me for.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can talk about whether or not I can come through. But if I never ask, it shows high insensitivity and does not show a collaborative spirit.
Yeah.
But once I learned some things from other people that help them flourish when I work with them, oh boy, it's just helped immensely.
I can imagine. If you had to narrow down a few qualities that make somebody a great leader compared to just an average one, what do you think those would be?
Well, I'll go back to good to great. You know, he said that on one hand, you've got to have a humble spirit, but you also still have to have drive, a firmness in your leadership, right? You don't want someone that's humble, but they're washy. By humble, I mean teachable. They're correctable. They're adaptable. I don't mean, doormat. So if someone's teachable as a leader, they're willing to listen to other people and believe that other people can actually help them become a better leader. At the same time, they have resolve, they have clear vision, they help people know what they're expecting so that people can go after it. Oh, those are great things. And I think he calls that a level 5 leader. Mm-hmm. So take Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, that guy had backbone, but he also was incredibly humble. He surrounded himself with a cabinet that was all his former enemies.
Yeah.
That had literally run against him and often publicly maligned him.
Yeah.
But when he was thinking about the Emancipation Proclamation, if you go to the museum here in town, you'll see the table that reenacts that. They had lots of really, really powerful conversations of disagreement. But when it was time to make the decision, he made the decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I just admire that. I think it's a great combination of humility, which invites collaboration, but then also firmness when it's time to make a decision.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I always, sometimes it's tough to, you really have to work to get your team to be comfortable to tell you if they don't agree with a decision or they think something's not, not right that you're doing or whatever that is. And I try to encourage that because I don't know, it's just me. I don't have a partner, you know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, that's here with me that we're doing this. It's really, I have these ideas and I might make a decision and I try to get feedback on that and, tell me if it's bad. Tell me if you don't think this is right. It's just, and try to talk through it. I like that, talking through. And a lot of times I'll run them by people that aren't even in our business if I have the opportunity. And I love that's where, some of the best, I guess, relationships or, some of the people I enjoy talking to the most are people that I haven't even known that long. Just because I've met them, they might be a little older than me and just been around longer or have more experience in business, or maybe they're not even a business owner, but they've just been through a lot of different stuff in life. So it's always interesting to, ask their opinion about something. I really enjoy talking to, I met him through Silsa. I don't know. Do you know Steve Peralta?
I don't.
He's turned into a really good friend and just somebody that, will give me some honest feedback. He's had a lot of experience in life. And sometimes when I have a problem, he's one of the people I go talk to.
What a blessing. I think that's important to have people that we surround ourselves with like that. Amy Edmondson from Harvard has coined the phrase psychological safety. And when I think of someone that created psychological safety, I think of Alan Mulally, who left Boeing and went to Ford to be the CEO and had a turnaround. I think they were like $8 billion in debt when Alan Mulally showed up. And what he noticed is they had a system where they would use green light, yellow light, red light for how the projects were going in the different regions of the world. So the North American would weigh in and say, yeah, it's green light right now. We're in green. And when he went around the table, he noticed that everybody was green lighting everything. And so he said, why are we $8 billion in debt then if
everything's green lighted?
And so finally one guy at the meeting finally said, I'm red light, I got to admit it. And all the rest of the people at the table, because of the predecessor who had led those meetings before as a CEO, they all kind of waved at him and said, bye-bye. They thought he was a goner.
Yeah.
But instead, Alan Mulally looked at him and said, now we're getting somewhere, way to go. Talk more about that.
Yeah.
And once the other people saw they weren't going to get absolutely ripped into or fired, then all of a sudden they had enough psychological safety to be contrary. I'll just say this too. Practically, what do we do on our staff to invite more of a collaboration? We and I've helped other teams do this, but we wrote a team covenant of how we were going to behave with each other. And
that's interesting.
We read a book about it, and we took some of those ideas from the book, and then we added our own. And again, even since I stepped aside, they've revamped it just a little bit. But we read at the beginning of some of our meetings, and even when we onboard people. So one of the things we say in there is that we will allow contrary opinions inside the room, but unity outside the room. We're not going, and we also say silence is agreement. After as we allow people that need more time to process, but if they never speak up, silence is agreement. Mm-hmm. Don't come back later and say you didn't agree with that.
Yeah.
Right. But so those things have helped us. We literally said, look, let's make sure that we're safe enough to say, I have reservations about that.
Yeah.
Say them now. Don't say them later.
Yeah.
And then
when we're already halfway through the implementation or whatever.
Some people will go, I disagreed with that the whole time. But you never spoke up.
Right.
And of course, sometimes that's because the leader has made people pay when they spoke up.
Yeah.
So I know every time when someone comes and they need to tell me what we call the last 10% thing, because it's easy to tell the first 90% of the truth, but most people hesitate telling the last 10. If someone comes to me and tells me a last 10, even if I disagree with some of it, the way I react will determine whether or not they trust me to ever share again.
Yeah.
And again, I've tried not to make too many mistakes that way where the people go, remind me not to talk to Jeff. He's not a person that takes feedback well.
Yeah.
He may say he's very open to feedback, but then he made me pay, and I think I've made that mistake several times. And fortunately, those people came back and told me I made that mistake and they were right.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. What would you say, like, you coach, you work with a lot of, leaders and business executives. What would you say is like the number one challenge that executives and leaders face?
The way I've been answering that lately is, back in the Army, I think it was the 40s or 50s, used to delineate between hard skills and soft skills. And by hard skills, they meant those tasks or competencies that you need to be good at your job, whereas the soft skills were the people skills. So almost all the people that, ask me to spend time with them, they're not, like for instance, I work with some people at one of the healthcare organizations here that work with surgery and other things. They don't ask me to come in and ask how to do plastic surgery or brain surgery or spine surgery. They already have that competency down. What they're trying to navigate is the relational side. The relational side is far more difficult. I mean, relational work to me is way tougher than task work.
Yeah.
And so most of the time I would say that most leaders, they're trying to figure out how to do the relational work better. Some of them are actually pretty good at it, but they want to get better because they know that the rewards of that pay off huge. I would say probably many leaders are trying to figure out how to be a good team builder.
Yeah.
Think about it. If you're a good team builder, you take full advantage of all the gifts of the team. But if you're not a team builder, then it keeps falling back on you. Harvard Business Review one of the most published articles was about the monkeys on your back. And if you are working with someone and you constantly take the monkeys from their back onto your back, you'll have so many monkeys on your back. So how do you learn to delegate? How do you learn to empower? How do you learn to relate to people well so that now they're all working in the same direction? So I would say it's the relational side.
Interesting. Yeah,
and by the way, I'm still learning too. So it's not because they asked me to come in because, Jeff, you're the expert at all relational skills. No, but I'm learning, and I think they enjoy the conversation.
Yeah. Do you find a lot of them, really are kind of looking for someone just to talk through these different things with?
Totally. I had one guy that he travels internationally, speaks. He's very much an expert in his field, but then he also does quite a bit of surgery, and then also educates. And he said to me one day, he said, I realized that I needed an hour that was set aside just to process out loud. Otherwise, I go from one thing to one thing to one thing, and I never am able to get a hold of things that might help me in the middle of all this.
Yeah.
So totally. I mean, I think we all need someone that can draw out of us what we need to think about. Coaching is all about helping someone move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And doing it by pulling out of them. I've loved when some people have asked me questions. I didn't even know I thought that. And then I heard myself say it. And I thought, and by the way, when I have people come and meet with me in my office over the years as a pastor, I usually pray first. I ask if it's okay if I pray, that we invite God to give us wisdom. And I'll say, God, if you want them to actually hear something they say that helps them most today, then make that happen. Because really, sometimes we all of a sudden have these aha moments. And I think that's happened for a number of people. They go, look, it's not that I don't have drive or I'm an overachiever, but I need someone to help me just pause long enough to get the intelligent thoughts I'm going to need for this next chapter.
Yeah. Just even talking it out, getting it out of you, and then just hear, like I could see that for sure, like hearing. I mean, that's happened with me for sure, just talking to people. Like you're just talking and you get it out of you and you almost answer your own question. You just
totally. And once it gets outside you, you can see it and organize it. But if it's all muddled in your head, or you may have all the pieces inside your head, you've just never seen them organized a certain way. And so sometimes if you have a person that's asked good questions, that's incisive, that's a good listener, wow, it's a great gift. Listening is in short supply.
Yeah.
Edgar Schein is a great leader, and he wrote several books, and he said we're more of a tell culture than an ask culture. And as a result, we're missing a lot of things. So he talks about, his book is called Humble Inquiry. And O'Shea Builders have been reading that book, the second edition of that book. It's a phenomenal book about how to learn how to listen. And we just don't learn as much as we could sometimes because we want to tell people and look like the answer person or the real wise person. That's the biggest mistake. If someone asks me in my 41 years of leadership, what have you learned? I learned that the first half, maybe even more, I wanted to impress people with my knowledge. And this last half, I want to get better at learning from the knowledge of other people.
Yeah. And I mean, and a lot of people just want to be heard.
Yes.
They might be, you talk about your team or something coming to you with an issue, like they might not even really care that much. They just want to be heard about it, Even
if you make a different decision, if they felt like they were heard and respected, then they can go along with it better.
Yeah. How about like burnout? Do you ever get people, coming, you talking about burnout a lot? That's a tough thing. Like, you as a business owner, and I'm sure, people that are in executive positions in general, like, you work a lot, you deal with a lot of problems. It seems like you kind of just keep getting punched down a lot. I know personally there's times that I felt very burnt out.
Yeah. I ran into the wall 2 or 3 times where I almost quit. So I had to learn how to pace myself differently and build in different rhythms. And I think I've been able to figure that out in the last 15 years better. But I think sometimes burnout isn't how much work you're doing. It's, are you doing the right work? And are you figuring out how to do that work in a way that it's not destroying the work in you, So I do think that some people get burnout just because their expectations are they shouldn't be having to work this hard,
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they have to adjust their expectations. So it's a combination.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
goes
interesting.
Back to fit, as well. Like for instance, if I'm made for something, then I may be tired, but it's a good tired compared to a bad tired.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's interesting. You see a lot of times with like creators online too. A lot of times, they've been making videos nonstop about a topic, and that's how they got popular, and then just get completely burnt out doing it. One of the big creators I followed when I was starting this business, and I still follow, he just doesn't really make videos anymore. His name's Casey Neistat, and he was one of the first vloggers that would create his vlogs in a way that were like small movies and really tell a story, and he would really think through what he was going to do in his vlogs, with like from a almost like a play perspective, like the build up, the climax, like all that stuff. Like he would think through his vlogs, but he would do it every single day. He did a vlog every single day for like 500 days or something like that. It was crazy, but he was super creative, and I loved when I was starting this business, waking up in the morning and watching his vlog, usually from the day before. And it was just really inspirational, like from a creative standpoint. But yeah, I tried to do it at one point. I was like, could I do that? You know? And I was like, yeah, I can't do this. Like, this is crazy. I can't believe he does a video every single day.
Yeah.
How about the people that you've worked with? Like, is there any thing that stands out to you from the people that you've worked with where it's been like the biggest kind of breakthrough or aha moment or anything that just really changed somebody's life?
Well, I think one of the things that I'm not good at, but I learned about 25 years ago as a leader, is that if you want to have something that's going to be healthy for a long time, you have to have systems. And sometimes when you say systems, that sounds sterile. But I think systems are the infrastructure, the backbone, so that you can repeat and replicate things over and over. So I was not good at that. I break out in a cold sweat when I have to be super detailed, super planned. And so we brought some people on our team, and the questions they ask, whether it's about signage, hey, someone walks into our building, what's it like for them?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can ask the question, but I could not necessarily spell out the exact answers. So one of my favorite quotes is by Rick Warren, who said, nothing becomes dynamic until it becomes specific. The more specific you get, the clearer the target is and the easier it is to move towards it. So I think having some administratively gifted people that would ask me questions like, yes, but how? How are we going to do that? And then some other people go, I have some answers to that. And I didn't have to be the smartest person in the room. And I never could have predicted that Cherry Hills would go from 150 to 1,400 people. Now,
Wow.
Again, that's not the biggest church in town. I mean, churches like Westside and others have learned how to scale beyond that in some amazing ways. Eddie Lowen and Melissa Sandel and those people are brilliant leaders at Westside. But for us, that's still a pretty big change, especially since I want to be more relational. So I think it was surrounding myself with people that had gifts I did not have. That was probably one of the coolest breakthroughs to watch. I could never have imagined we'd be out on a 72-acre farm, with a place that is what it is today. And again, I'm not talking about the building. The spirit of the church is what excites me. I've met hundreds of people I would have never met if I had just stayed there on Outer Park, on 1.5 acres in a cramped setting, and all that. So I think I'm grateful for the people that have been on the team that have taught me what I didn't know.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's very cool. So I know we've been going for a little bit. I had a few more questions though, just some top 3 questions.
Okay.
What are the top 3 qualities every good leader should have?
Well, I would go back to humble, hungry, smart. I mean, there's no way. I mean, in fact, Patrick Lencioni says, look, if you have hungry and smart, but you don't have humble, I think we all know this. If a leader thinks they're superior, if they're condescending, it's really hard to follow them. So my dad was a great example to me about humility. He was adaptable. He was changeable. He inquired of other people. He didn't just think it was all up to him. He didn't think he was the smartest person in the room, and as a result, he learned way more. So I would say that's huge. And then hungry. I can't be pleased with what I already know or what I've already done. I've got to keep growing. So continual improvement. And then smart. Am I picking up, do I have a healthy self-awareness and a healthy other people awareness? Is my radar system completely broken, or am I learning how to pick up on things more quickly?
Yeah.
Because that does a lot of people a service. A lot of people don't want to have to bring up stuff. And so being married helps. My wife is able to help me see a lot of blind spots, and she's served me well.
Yeah.
So I'd say humble, hungry, smart.
You got kids?
I do.
How many kids you got?
I have 3 grown kids that are married, and we have 5 grandchildren.
Wow. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
We've been married 43 years, so I'm grateful that she's been willing to stick with me.
Yeah, it really changes you when you have kids. I feel like gives you like a higher purpose, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know how business owners start businesses with kids. I can't imagine doing that.
I admire. I sat with some of them this morning.
Yeah, I'm glad, you know, as much as I wish I would have started sooner, there's also like, it's kind of nice that I was able to get this going before having them at the same time. But yeah, it's just, you know.
And you don't just have one business. I mean, some people even one business.
Yeah.
I admire that.
And I've really changed my mindset a lot. You know, I used to work 12 to 14 hours a day on this. And when I had kids, it took me a little bit to really realize it. But I'm like, I don't want to work that much. I want to spend as much time with them as I can, especially while they're young and they actually want to hang out with you and, you know, think the world of you. And because there's a point, you know, I'm sure when they, from what I've heard, it's, you know, when they become teenagers and whatnot, they, you know, they're busy. They want to hang out with friends. They're not as worried about, you know, hanging out with you.
Well, this is one of the things I admire about your generation, like I was saying earlier. I think for the most part, so many of you really do love your kids and really want to make sure you carve out time for them and don't look back later and say, I wish I would have done more at the office. You know, you want to look back and say my relational world was a big priority for me.
Yeah. I don't want to be, I really make a strong effort to be at like all their events. And obviously, you know, it was interesting hearing them talk about it at the Elevate Springfield thing we did. And, cause you know, I deal with that all the time. You know, whenever, even when I stay late, like sometimes I'll be like, I just got to get this done. I'm going to be here late. Come 7:00, I start feeling really guilty because I'm not there to say goodnight to them. Mm-hmm. But you know, I also have to, you know that like, it's okay if you're not there every single night, you know what I mean? But, you know, as long as the majority, yeah, it's a tough balance. Let's see here. What else do I got? What would be a last good couple here? What are the top 3 mistakes you think business owners make when trying to grow?
I would say that they don't set realistic goals. I would say they don't listen to other people. And I would say that they don't, you know, align with their values long enough and consistently enough.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, really feeds into where we've kind of sums up a lot of what we talked about, honestly. Well, before we go, what's one piece of advice you'd give every small business owner or executive or person that you might work with, or anybody watching this?
I think it's really easy to feel isolated or to feel like you're in it alone. And so what we talked about at the beginning, if you can get several other people, I'll just give you an example. Some of the people that opened Chick-fil-A here again in Springfield, they've now moved to Raleigh, North Carolina. But they told me that by being able to talk to Charlie Parker's when Mike Murphy and his wife owned it, to talk to people at Shields and just find out what they were learning about HR issues, and you know, it literally kept them, when they were discouraged at times, it kept them in the game. So I do think we need each other, and sometimes finding someone else that's in the same challenges as us and then being able to be vulnerable can be a huge help. And again, I think sometimes we don't want people to see us sweat, or we don't want to get vulnerable like that. And the people that do often learn the most. And so I probably encourage that, because I have so much respect for small business owners, because it's hard. And in the state of Illinois, I think it's even harder. So I think by being able to collaborate with some other people or just get real with some other people is absolutely pivotal for many small business owners, since you're literally pioneering something that's not easy and can easily go south. Mm-hmm. So that's probably what I'd say.
I love that. Perfect way to end it. Well, Jeff, thanks so much for coming on. I was really excited to have you on.
Thanks for the honor.
Just from our, conversations in groups and stuff like that, I was excited to get some one-on-one time with you and pick your brain a little bit. And hopefully this brings value to all the viewers. And then at Cherry Hills, how often are you Do you kind of
I'm
lead?
not speaking as much anymore. I'm more behind the scenes. I spoke a couple times in August. Probably 4 or 5 times this year. I do a lot more behind the scenes with some of the leaders and staff. So, we have, our website always has past messages that I've given if someone was that curious, but I don't think that's necessary. We have some great teachers at Cherry Hills, and we get a lot of compliments about how helpful their teaching is. And I had some great people to hand the leadership to, a whole staff that I really admire. So
awesome.
Yeah.
And then how about from the executive coaching side of things? What's the best way if someone's looking for someone to talk to
Sure.
or coach? What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
My website's jeffcoaching.com, and my email is jeff@jeffcoaching.com. So.
All right, there it is. Anybody, definitely check him out if you need help or need a coach. I haven't personally had a one-on-one coaching experience, but I feel very much coached through this podcast and through the experiences we have had together. So I'm very appreciative of those. And again, appreciative of you coming on today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Bye.